target 1, representing Turkey, Emircan Haney. On target 2, representing Italy, Leonardo Constantino. Line judge Aurel Robber and target judge Yuri Yogev. First to shoot is Emircan Haney. On target
Well, here we
1.
go. Compound men's gold medal match. Emircan Haney of Turkey, the world number 74, is 21 years old, and he goes up against the 19-year-old Leonardo Constantino of Italy, who hasn't got a world ranking just yet. I fancy he'll have one after today. 15 arrows, highest score takes gold. Emircan Haney of Turkey will get this gold medal match underway.
Nine.
We've seen the archers going low left a lot here, so Leonardo Constantino perhaps came to the field of play knowing that.
X. Nine.
Yeah, most of the archers so far have hit left, as you stated, but they seem to correct their sights quite fast, and like you can see here, they're doing a great job at it.
Drifting off into the 8, and a 2-point deficit isn't that much, but this early on it does put a little bit of pressure on Haney. Chef, anything in particular you saw that third arrow from Haney that made you think, well, that's not going to go where he wants it to?
I think you mean Constantino.
Sorry, Constantino, of course, yes.
Yeah, well, he is shooting a hinge style release, so he's shooting on back tension essentially, and not using his fingers but his whole shoulder and posterior chain. And it's a much different style of shooting than Haney is doing with his trigger. He has a wrist release with a trigger. So rather than making the shot happen yourself by pushing a trigger, he needs to keep pulling with his release in his hand, and the shot has to happen to him rather than making it happen. So in a windy situation, that might mean that if your sight drifts off and the shot goes off, then you're caught off guard, and it might drift out of the middle. So it's a bit of a different tactic, which is interesting to see here in this windy venue.
That is a really interesting point. The shot, making it happen or it happening to you. It happened to Constantino, dropped an 8 in the last end. So he shoots first in the second end, trailing by 2. That will give him some confidence.
So you can see the difference here. Constantino is taking his thumb off of his release aid and just gently pulling through the tension of the bow, and then it goes off. Rather than, which works for him apparently, rather than Haney, who has his index finger on his wrist release and just actively pushes the button to make the arrow go.
Perfect, Chef.
So it's two different tactics, but they both work.
Brilliant description there with the pictures showing you everything. That thumb coming off the release, pulling through. You can see the bow moving around. And that's a long hold. Did he get away with that? Big opportunity here for Haney.
Ooh, a bit of a twitch.
Oh. but a perfect 30, and he took that opportunity in a big way. 59 for him. You've talked about the difference between these releases. So why would someone use a release like Constantino that in windy conditions, perhaps?
Well, we've just had a really good example of Haney having a bit of a twitch. I think that it was maybe due to some mental issues, wanting to push the trigger even though he wasn't ready for it yet. So there's this thing, it's also referred to as target panic, where if you shoot a trigger style release, you have to choose yourself how you, or when you shoot the arrow rather. If you don't use it in the way that many people use it, by holding your thumb or index finger on the button and pulling like it would be a hinge style release. So shooting a hinge release takes most of the shooting on command out of the shot, which makes it easier mentally to deal with the pressure and the target panic that you could eventually get.
It's a fascinating sport when you start to drill down into those little details and just go a little bit below the surface. But on the first instance, it sounded like you were saying one trigger was better than the other, and then immediately you come back and say, well, actually, there's the other side of it. Fascinating sport. It's Haney that's leading at the moment, so Constantino of Italy will shoot first in the third.
Nine.
Going low again, so perhaps the wind is just coming at them a little bit more.
9.
Yeah, you can see the bow moving around, and you can see that pretty much everything in the background is moving as they're full drawn. So it's no surprise that they're also under a lot of pressure from the wind. And again, with those twitchy movements.
Did he hit the line?
He did, I think.
They pull these shots off after hanging on for so long. An 84 for Leonardo Constantino. Could be a big lead for Haney here, though.
X.
Puts it into the X as well, so an 88 for him. Well, a 4-point lead more than halfway through the match. Chef, whose shoes would you rather be in?
Well, I think that's a pretty easy question to answer. I would much rather be in the leading section of this match, obviously, but it doesn't have to be over. If you just keep shooting strong shots, you're shooting first if you're trailing. So you can put some pressure on the opponent, and if it's windy, then anything can happen. So yeah, never give up, I would say.
So shooting first, you talked about this before. It can be a little bit of an advantage because you can pile that pressure on, but then you look at the other side of it and say, well, the other guy's not looking at the scores and not looking at what you're doing. Well, it's certainly a good position for Emircan Haney of Turkey, the world number 74, from a country that loves its archery. Italy, of course, have had great success on the field of archery as well. Perhaps not quite the historic nature of the sport in that country, though. Emircan Haney leading, so Leonardo Constantino of Italy, the 19-year-old who is going to be claiming his first medal here, shoots first, trailing by 4. It's the 4th set. He put the pressure on, as we talked about, but then Haney just comes back with an X.
Whoa, that looked like a good shot, but that was just quite unlucky with where it landed. Just right out of the 10, but... I think at this point he'll need to hit 10s and hope for some mistakes of his opponent. But yeah, if you're hitting like a couple millimeters out of the 10, that's not ideal.
9.
Well, that's more than a couple of millimeters out for a 1-1-2.
10.
And pops it into the 10 for a 117, and things seemingly getting worse for Leonardo Constantino from Italy. Chef, you talked about unlucky. Did that second arrow hit the first one for the Italian?
Not that I saw, but yeah, it might be one of those instances. But typically it makes a very distinct sound if you break the knock end of your arrow. And I didn't hear the mics pick it up, so yeah, I might have misheard, but it did seem like it went straight into the 9.
Yeah, and you've mentioned this before, but it's worth talking about it again. 50 meters from shooting line to the target, a fraction of a millimeter difference on the shooting line makes centimeters of difference at the target end, right?
Yeah, if you would just hypothetically look at the eye to pin distance, so the distance from your eye to your sight, and say it's 1 meter, then everything is magnified by 50. So if you move your sight 1 millimeter, it's 50 millimeters on the target. Typically, archers don't have a 1 meter distance. It's more like 90 centimeters on average, I think. But just to give you an example, a little movement in your bow hand is a lot of movement on the target. So you have to be super stable or know what to do exactly if your sight is not bang on in the middle.
Well, Leonardo Constantino of Italy has not been bang on in the middle. He's shot an 8 and a few 9s. It's not a bad score at all, but he finds himself 5 points down going into the 5th end, and he will shoot first. He's got a big ask here to turn this one around. That's a great start, though.
Some jar lickers, as some people would say. He's hitting the lines now. I think it's a bit of a karma from last end, where he was just missing the line.
Wow.
Ooh, that's a bit of a slip up.
That certainly is a bit of a slip up. He's just opened the door a little bit. Oh, just gone into the 9 there for a 141. So a 7 to draw level. Anything more and he's got gold.
9.
A 9 is more than enough. A 141 for Emircan Haney of Turkey means he has claimed the 2022 European Grand Prix first leg gold medal here in Plovdiv.